Hello, everyone, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Profitable Coaching Conversation Show with WendyY Bailey. We've been on hiatus for about 2.5 weeks, and so I'm excited to come back to you with some all new content for the show. As a reminder, the Profitable Coaching Conversation Show is a web TV show and audio podcast. If you miss anything in this episode, you can always go and catch the replays at profitablecoachingconversations.com. That is our website that houses every single episode, whether it's a bonus episode or a guest episode. You can look for guest episodes to resume on Monday in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, which is May. So every day next week, there is a dedicated episode where I'm talking with either a group of people, a panel, or I'm talking with individual people who are indeed thriving with mental illness. So that's an exciting thing coming up. I also want to let you know guest episodes will resume, one-on-one guest episodes will resume the following Tuesday at 1 p.m. They're released at that time. And the bonus episodes, I'm usually here in the 2 p.m. Eastern hour on Thursday. So we're getting back to that today. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm WendyY Bailey. I will soon be a 19-year veteran business and sales coach and entrepreneur full-time in my business that whole time. It has not come without adversity, but I just delight in being able to say to you, I am still here. So welcome. So today's show is all about client attraction. I talk to so many people and hear from so many folks about they want to find clients. They want to know where to go to look for clients. They want to know, what they need to do to have more people in their pipeline and how to convert clients. I'm not talking so much about the conversion today, but I want to talk to you about what you can do, what you must do to stop looking for clients and start attracting clients. Now, it's all about perspective. Right? When you think of what you do every single day in your business to get seen and known and heard and paid, you've got to sort of step into that way of thinking when it comes to client attraction. So let me pave the way with some questions that I want you to begin to ask yourself. The first one is, who am I? And what I mean by that is, who are you in the marketplace? What do you want to be known for in the marketplace? Who are you when you open the doors to your home office, when you jump online? Who are you? And what are you showcasing that people recognize and know that they can associate with you? Who am I is a great question to begin. This is about introspection and reflection and self-reflection so that you can begin to shift your perspective about who you are and how you show up in the marketplace. Okay. So ask yourself, who am I? It's a very deep question, but I think once you begin the process of answering the question, you're going to find that, wow, I am so much more than I ever thought I was in the marketplace. Or you'll say, I've been hiding, and it's time for me to stop hiding. When I think of a client attraction, I also like to think of, when you think of dating, like I'm a single woman, and I'm always thinking, how am I showing up in the world to attract the man of my dreams, right? And that's kind of what this question is. How are you showing up in the world? Who are you showing up in the world as being to attract your ideal clients? Okay. When you think of client attraction, I want you to understand that it's all about inside out thinking. Inside out thinking. If you're catching the replay, go ahead and type hashtag replay. If you're here live, go ahead. I see someone has said, hi, Wendy Y. Go ahead and allow StreamYard permission so that they will show me who you are, and I'll see your name and I can respond to you personally. So the first question is, who am I? The second question you want to ask yourself is, who do I have to be to attract my ideal client? Who do you have to be? When you look at who do you have to be, you're talking about what are your values? How are you showing up in communication? What are you doing to connect and build and grow the relationship with your client? Who do you have to be to do that way? I talked to somebody recently and they said, I suck at relationships. And I said, well, I used to think I sucked at relationships too. And what I realized was that I had to be so much more intentional in how I showed up in relationships. That's in conversations, that's in any kind of projects you're working on, that's any kind of service that you're offering. Who do you have to be to attract your ideal client? Who do you have to be? The next question I want you thinking about is, what do I have to do to attract my ideal client? I'm going to give you some strategies that you can focus in on that. But you've got to think about, what do you have to do? And when I say what do you have to do, does that mean you need to elevate your education and knowledge and training? Or does that mean you need to, connect with certain people who can open doors for you? That's a possibility too. But what do you have to do to attract your ideal client? The next question, I've got one more question after this, and I'll get into the strategies. But the next question is, where do I have to go to attract my ideal client? When you think of your ideal client, I want you understanding the spaces and places where they are and what you want to do to reach out to them. Again, I'm going to talk about more details and more strategy in just a second. Then the last question I want you asking yourself, what do I have to know to attract my ideal client? What do I have to know? When you understand that you need to know very, very clearly who your ideal client is, then it makes it so much easier to answer the rest of the questions that I gave you. Okay, if you're just catching on, type hashtag replay, go back and watch the replay to catch the 5 questions that I gave you that are really about your perspective and a shift you want to make to step into client attraction rather than looking for and trying to find clients. So the first thing you've got to do, these are all strategies. The first strategy is you've got to understand ideal client clarity and the power of one. If you've been around me for any length of time, you know that I truly value and teach and coach on understanding your ideal client. You've got to know your ideal client intimately well. You've got to know demographics. So you've got to focus on gender and age and occupation and income, or sales if it's a business. You've got to understand all of the things that make them uniquely where they are. Is it profession? Is it industry? Whatever it is, you've got to know who your most ideal clients are. Demographics are really, really important. I even go so far as to challenge my clients to give their ideal client a name, so that when we talk about that ideal client avatar, we're talking about somebody in real terms. And we can talk about Susie, or we can talk about Janet, or we can talk about them in real terms. And then we can work on getting more specifics. So demographics of your ideal client are really, really important. Psychographics are also important. So when I talk about psychographics, I'm talking about what's important to them. How do they show up in their values? How do they communicate with you? What is it they are really connected to that helps you to serve them better when you know it, right? When they are in situations, you know how to connect with them. You know how to be with them. It also boils down to how they interact with you. How do they treat you? Because all of this information helps you to attract ideal clients and not difficult clients, right? When you have this outlined, be sure that you are very, very clear so you can almost spot them when you see them. You can read about somebody and know that they're your ideal client. You can hear someone ask a question on your webinar, in your room on Clubhouse, and you recognize who they are because of the question that they're asking and because of what you see in their bio. So demographics, psychographics, values, because you want your values to align with theirs. That way, you're working with someone that you can build trust and relationship with. So the first thing you've got to know is ideal client clarity and the power of one. I talk about this a lot, so I'm gonna kind of skim through that. The next thing you've got to be able to establish a clear and comprehensive brand. I misspelled comprehensive brand. And what that means is you start with one ideal client, you work with one ideal client, you recognize one core problem, you offer a comprehensive solution, and everything about your brand speaks to that ideal client. everything about your brand. It may be the colors, it may be the wording, it may be the messaging, it may be the image of your brand, how you present your brand in the marketplace. It may be all of those things, but you've got to make sure that your brand is consistent. That's not just about a visual brand, that's about the message of your brand. You've got to make sure that you are always on point in everything that you do. Let me say this. When I say this, you've got to think of every podcast interview that you do, every blog post that you write, every person whose blog, whose podcast you're on. If they're on your podcast, whatever it is, you've always got to be asking yourself, is this on brand? When I was first starting the web TV show and podcast that you're now watching, I was approached by a guy, and he's out there. And if you know I'm talking about you, Larry, say hello and let me know you're there. But he said to me, I think I would be a great guest on your podcast. And I said, okay, tell me why you think that. And he said, oh, because, I've sold lots of poetry. And I was like, I don't know that it's really going to benefit my audience to hear about how you sold poetry. And he courted me and he courted me. And then finally he said to me, I actually paid off $20,000 in debt selling poetry. I said, wow, that's a story that aligns with my brand. That's a story that my audience needs to see and hear, because I know there's power there. And his episode is live. Go to profitablecoachingconversations.com and look for Lawrence Berger, and you'll see his episode. It was a really juicy episode where he shared the strategy of doing all of that. But I would not be able to do that if I didn't have clarity about what my brand represents, if I didn't know on a comprehensive scale what I wanted to do and how I wanted to serve my ideal clients. So make sure that you have a clear and comprehensive brand that includes visual elements, as well as the messaging of the brand and how you show up in everything that you do related to your brand. The third thing you've got to employ what I call consistent marketing and visibility planning. You've got to have a plan of how you're going to be seen, known, and heard in the marketplace. If you feel like that's by being a guest on somebody's podcast, go be a guest on podcasts, but don't let it stop there. If you feel like your most ideal clients are on, let's say, YouTube, then you need to create a YouTube channel and you need to start reaching out to some of the influencers there so that you are gaining visibility. And that needs to be part of your marketing and visibility plan. Let me say this about consistency. When you're consistent, you are building trust for your brand, for you. Your ideal client gets to know, like, and trust you. And in knowing, liking, and trusting you, they also have an experience of you. And that's how you begin to make the connection. That's how the attraction is sparked so that you can continue working with them and serving them. So you've got to employ a consistent marketing and visibility plan. Last thing I want to say about consistency is that doesn't mean every hour or every minute or every day. It means you create whatever that consistency looks like for you and you maintain it. When I started the web TV show and audio podcast, I made a commitment that no matter what was going on, I'm going to do it for at least 2 years, because you've got to have the time for it to gain traction. And for me, that commitment looks like the consistency that I walked you through earlier. It is making sure that there are guest episodes every Tuesday. It's making sure that there are bonus episodes every Thursday. That's the consistency of my visibility and marketing specific to this particular vehicle. You've got to decide what that consistency looks like in your business. It doesn't mean you have to post on social media every day. It means that there is a consistent flow and a consistent timing that you have to be able to be visible and get seen and get known and get heard. So I talked about the 3 things you must have so far. You've got to understand ideal client clarity and the power of one. The second thing is you've got to establish a clear and comprehensive brand that's not just visual elements, but it's messaging and its consistency of, attraction and who you want to serve. It's also about employing a consistent marketing and visibility plan, consistent and marketing and visibility plan. The next thing I want you to know is you've got to practice an intentional client enrollment process. The first time I got a client, she practically hit me over the head to say, I want to hire you. I wasn't paying attention to buying signals. I didn't really have an enrollment process. An enrollment process identifies how you invite your clients to work with you. When I say it involves that invitation, that means you know what your ask is, right? What your invitation involves. That means you know what your programs are, what your fees are, which program you're going to offer to clients, certain clients, based on how they show up when they come to you. It means that once they say yes, you have a means to taking their payment. Maybe it's an invoice, maybe it's a credit card, maybe you process it right there on the spot. It means you have all of those things identified very, very clearly. One of the things I tell my clients all the time is, especially when you are just getting started or you're raising your fees and you're a little uncomfortable, you need to have that mapped out so that it becomes easy for you, because sometimes in those moments, fears can surface. And when fears surface, you may find that you stumble or you stammer over what you're saying. When you have that enrollment process outlined, including your fees, including your programs, so you know exactly which program you recommend for that client, it means that you are ready to stay in a positive space. That's part of your client attraction to do that. Hey, Aloysia, good to see you. I hadn't seen you in a while. So practice an intentional client enrollment process. Make sure you have one first, and then you can begin to role play it and practice it with your new clients in your discovery calls, in your strategy sessions, all of that kind of stuff. So that's the fourth thing. The fifth thing you want to have is an effective client engagement process. Once you have a client, it's really, really cool that you stay engaged with them. They want to know what's going on with you that will help them in some other ways. When an ideal client comes to you, he or she comes with more than one problem, but you can only solve one problem at a time. You know, it's sort of like years ago, I remember being on a webinar and telling people that I did keynotes and I did group coaching and I did individual coaching. And there were a couple clients there who were like, oh, I didn't know you did individual coaching. I thought all you did was group coaching. And there were a couple who said, oh, you know, I didn't know you did keynotes. I would have invited you to speak at my conference. When you stay engaged in a relationship and a conversation with your ideal client after they have hired you, what happens is you want to make sure they know other opportunities are available. You want to make sure that you're continuing to add value to them by sharing articles and videos and writing information that goes out to them that is nurturing and supportive and informative. You know, it's adding value to their business and their lives. So that's the fifth practice. The next thing you've got to do is you've got to create and utilize a compelling client retention process. It costs so much less on the penny to actually go out and get a new client rather than retain the client that you have. So everything you do to retain a client goes from customer service all the way to, you know, how you express happy birthday to them. It could be something that simple. It could be whether you wish them happy Mother's Day or happy Father's Day. It's also about making sure that if there are any issues that come up, you address them with great communication. You're still holding the relationship at its highest as you work through whatever the misunderstanding or issues are that come up. Your client retention process can make or break your business, because clients who see you as a one-stop shop will want to stay with you. They'll want to be with you and stay connected to you because of all that you can share. So that's the next thing. And the last strategy that you want to have is you want to establish a sales process that really, really showcases how you really can serve them. Okay. Every step of the way. That means you've got a methodology that you use. I'm not into tactics and techniques. I'm into creating and building a relationship, nurturing the trust, creating systems that allow me to do that. My messages allow me to do that. I actually teach clients how to create email nurture sequences that convert. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And then it means tracking. And all of this really leads to conversion in your client attraction strategy as well. So these have been the 7 things that I know will help you to get clear. The first thing is to make sure you have the right perspective about it. Then you can understand ideal client clarity and the power of one with greater clarity. It also means that you can establish a clear and comprehensive brand that is not just visual branding. It's about messaging. It's about substance of your brand as well. Then it's about employing a consistent marketing and visibility plan. How do you want to get seen, known, and heard in the marketplace? And is that on brand? So your ideal clients recognize it. Then the 4th thing is to practice an intentional client enrollment process. That means that you're not stumbling and stammering. You're not offering them the farm when it's time for them to actually walk into being a client with you. It means that you know exactly what program will work for them. You know exactly what the fee is for that program. You can articulate that easily and effortlessly, and it leads to conversion. That means they give you a credit card and they pay you to work with you. Then you're talking about having practicing an effective client engagement process. It's not just enough to start them and then they're in your world, so to speak, and you don't communicate otherwise. You've got to always be in the process of inviting them to engage with you in different places. Facebook groups is a great place to create that kind of engagement. A lot of the things that I do in my private Facebook group, I do because I'm focused on engaging people in what I do, in supporting each other, serving them with high value content. And, that's a beautiful part of the client engagement process that's fun for you to engage in, for you to participate in. Then you've also got to create and utilize a compelling client retention process. You've got to keep the clients that come into your pipeline. When you keep the clients that come into your pipeline, you end up with lifelong learners. You end up with clients who are growing and expanding with you as you grow and expand your business. And that's really cool when you can retain clients over a period of time. The last one I gave is to establish a sales process. That includes the methodology. Mine is to know, like, trust, build, nurture relationships, add value every step of the way. Messaging is, again, on brand, but it's also when you are in the sales conversation, your messaging should reflect your values. Your messaging should reflect how you treat your clients. Your messaging should reflect what you value and why it's important that they know that, as much as it being aligned with them, your values being aligned with theirs. Then there's tracking and systems, making sure that you have a way to collect payments, making sure you have a way to monitor activity related to your sales process. That means follow-up, phone calls, all that good stuff. And it also means you are watching and you can actually identify your conversion numbers. When you're able to extend an opportunity for a client to work with you, what's your conversion rate look like? How many clients are you talking to? Do you need to talk to more? And what are the mechanisms that allow you to do that in your sales process, in your sales system? So this has been a bonus episode of the Profitable Coaching Conversation Show. Let me just jump over here and see if there are. Hey, Rashonda and Kimberly, love, love, love. Yes. Glad you are here. I wanted to make sure that I looked to see if there were any questions. When you look at client attraction, it is so much about your thinking. It is so much about your perspective. So stop looking for clients and start attracting them with a clear client attraction process that includes these 7 elements. And also start looking at how you're showing up and what you're saying to yourself about how you show up in the marketplace. And when you focus on being very intentional in these areas, in your perspective, in your marketing, in your ideal client clarity, I'm not going to go over them all again, but when you start being intentional about how you show up and understanding that your job is to attract clients, not to beat them over the head and say, come with me, you're my client. You don't have to find them. You go to the spaces and places where they are, and they love seeing you and greeting you there. We're here every week on Thursday with a new bonus episode live, and I'm broadcasting live in my private Facebook group, my Facebook profile, my Facebook page, LinkedIn, YouTube, WendyY Bailey, and YouTube, Profitable Coaching Conversations. If you're catching the replay, go ahead and type hashtag replay to let me know you were here. And if you're catching the replay and you have some questions, feel free to post them in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to visit them and come back and respond to those questions. Catch all of the latest episodes at profitablecoachingconversations.com. You can join the society at profitablecoachingsociety.com. I'll see you next time for a great episode. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Bye.